Good evening, everyone. It is Tuesday, March 19th, 2024. I'm John DeWanzik, and this is the regular meeting of the Avon Lake Board of Municipal Utilities. We have a full board tonight. Starting at my left, Mr. Abram, Mr. Rush, and to my right, Mrs. Schnabel and Mr. Ricky. So the full board is here. We are streaming the meeting on Facebook Live and YouTube, an additional venue that we don't previously have. So with the full board here, all votes will be taken by voice count, and with the exception of a motion to go into executive session, which is expected tonight, that will be taken by individual vote. Roll call vote. With us tonight, besides the board, is Chief Utilities Executive, Mr. Monroe, and Chief of Utilities Operation, Mr. Urinich. Also with us tonight, we have Mr. Bill Logan, Business and Financial Coordinator. And from the City of Avon Lake, we have Amy Gentry and Jennifer Fenderbosch from City Council. Also with us tonight is Mr. Tony Coyne, and welcome to everyone. While we're streaming the meeting, you have the opportunity for public input on either of the venues. Mr. Urinich will be minding the store on that count, and when we get to that point of the meeting, we will address any questions that are put into the comments. Did I miss anything, Mr. Rush? We are starting a little bit late tonight, 10 after 7, when I started talking in this meeting, because we had a work session that involves other members of city government, including mayor and the law director and finance director. So thank them for their attendance, and I think it was a productive work session. First item before the board in the regular meetings is the approval of minutes from the March 5th, 2024 meeting. Are there any comments on those minutes? Hearing none, they are approved as submitted. Mr. Urinich, do we have any public input at this time?
We do not have any public speakers at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Councilwoman, do we have any public input from your standpoint? Thank you. Mr. Monroe, do we have any correspondence?
We have no correspondence to pass along this evening.
Thank you. The next item then is the approval of expenditures. Would someone like to make that motion, Mr. Abram?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I move to approve Avon Lake Regional Water expenses from March 1st through March 14th, 2024.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Abram. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Rush. Discussion.
I have one question, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Mr. Abram.
Fund 701 on the front page, number 54,
Okay.
Municipal H2O.com. I'd like to refresh my memory with that.
Yeah, Mr. Abram, what that represents is our risk management plan fee, which is required for the use of our chlorine gas that we have at the water filtration plant. So with our upcoming improvements that are getting ready to take off, that we will be eliminating the chlorine gas and going to the sodium hypochlorite system. In the future, that will be, we will no longer be required to pay that fee.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Okay. Anyone else?
I had one.
Yes, Mr. Schnabel.
On Fund 721, line item 23. Does that stand for variable frequency drives?
Yes, it does.
And is that just like that's at the water reclamation facility, so is that just a normal maintenance type thing that those had to be replaced? I always think
Yes.
it's so new, because it's
Well,
new-ish over
about
there.
7 years old, and they had a failure of one of the VFDs, variable frequency drives, for one of the raw pumps.
Okay.
And that was to replace it.
Okay. So but it's like, that's standard, that, like you said, it's reached its limit.
I'm disappointed, I thought it would be a very fine day, but,
It could be.
yeah. A question for you, Mr. Monroe, from me is, have the price of rocks gone up a lot? I noticed that we kind of used more than half of the budget on the rock pile.
That expense represents topsoil that we buy when we have to reseed, and do lawn restorations from a water break. The percentage on that budget, what we found is that there was some allocation that needs to be corrected. If you recall, the city passed a temporary budget, and they are in the process. I believe they're going to third reading at their next meeting for passing the permanent budget for this year. And because Mr. Widman, the finance director, had to enter into the system our budgets, there was a few cleanup items that we needed to do as far as the allocation. So that skewed the percentage on that.
So we can expect in a future meeting that's going to look more like it should.
Yes.
Okay, so to this, as it relates to the subject of the work session, this comes out of that very same system eventually. So we are affected in this document by the things that the city does with items like that.
Yes, because all of this information is an exported report that comes out of the New World System, NWS for short. New World Systems is the name of the financial software. And that, again, to the discussion that we did have in the work session, some of the permissions for Mr. Logan and a couple other staff members in the system that will work with the finance director on correcting some of those. We can make those type of changes on our accounts in the future. So it does directly relate to that.
Okay, thank you. Any questions other than that from the board before we go to vote? Hearing none, we'll close discussion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
It passes. Okay, next matter is the OWDA loan, Mr. Monroe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is just an information item for the board that the funding application for the 2024 water filtration plant improvement project was approved by OWDA, the Ohio Water Development Authority, at their February 29th meeting. With contingencies, the total application was a little over $32 million. So we made two applications. We made the funding application and then also applied for a portion of the project in a separate application that we're going to try to get covered as funded as 0% interest.
That's a nice percentage when you're having to pay them.
Yes.
It's a bad percentage
So
if you're going to pay that.
as it stands right now, they split the application into two. It's one loan, but it's two funding sources as of right now, and that's $25 million of the loan is at a 3.56% interest rate, and then the remaining balance is at a 4.07% interest rate, which, considering the amount and the terms, are still not bad rates and are lower than some of our historical debt from 15 or 20 years ago. The blended rate is it puts us right about 4% is the current market rate. So we're a little under market. So because of our long-standing history with OWDA and our on-time payments, that's why we're able to take the bulk of that loan at the lower interest rate, which is significant when it comes to time to pay that back. The loan payments for this debt service will begin 1 year after completion of the project. So our first payment would be due in July of 2027. And from a timing standpoint, we have two other of our pieces of our debt service that will be retired, one this year and one next year. While it doesn't make up the full amount, it's a very minimal increase in our debt service for taking on this much debt. So it's prudent financing that it will be minimal, if any, impact to rates.
Good. Mr. Rush.
Is the reason they split it, they only wanted to give us so much at the lower rate so they can spread that around to other communities, or?
Their policy is it's capped at $25 million. So
Okay.
while I applied for the full amount, it was OWDA that contacted me and said, if you're okay with this, we'll take it into two separate streams. And then that way you'll be able to take advantage of a lower interest rate.
And only because you brought it up, how much geo debt do we still have outstanding? Is it some of the stuff we're trying to eliminate in the future?
Bill, do you have the rough number off the top of my head?
Yeah, I know our payments are about 8.2 million a year. GO debt though is very minimal, and one of those is dropping off.
That is one of the pieces that will be retired at the end of this year.
90% of the debt is OWDA debt at very low, in some cases 0% interest rates. But I don't have that number off the top of my head. I can get it for you.
I think ultimately, I believe that's the board's goal, to try to eliminate using that type of debt in the future. Yes.
Sure. And as we continue to build our cash reserves, I think that is a goal to strive towards. If you recall, when Raftellus did the rate study, we fell well below average compared to nationally and in the state of Ohio for utilities and the amount of debt that we carry. So we fell in the very we're doing good as far as our debt to income ratio.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Anything else on that item?
That is all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Next item appears to be annual step increases, so they're going up the stairs, it sounds like. Would you like to tell us anything in particular about that, Mr. Monroe?
This is an information item that we have to do every year to memorialize officially in the minutes that we have our annual wage step increases awarded on April 1st at the recommendation of supervisors. So the following employees shall receive the appropriate step increases effective April 1st, 2024. Heather Barnes, customer service rep, will go from a step 5 to a step 6. Tim Bradley, line maintenance operator, will go from step 5 to step 6. Michael Clough, who's a plant operator at our water reclamation facility, will go from step 6 to step 7. Cameron Cool, who is a maintenance technician, will go from step 6 to step 7. Robin Leopold, labs chief analyst, is going from a step 2 to step 3. Vince Petroselli, maintenance technician, will be going from step 6 to step 7. Rebecca Robertson, a customer service representative, will be going from step 6 to step 7. And Adam Schultz, who is a line maintenance technician, will be going from step 1 to step 2.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Monroe. Any questions from the board on that? Thank you to all the employees that are staying with us and doing such a good job with their positions. Okay, next item is concrete supply bid, and Mr. Urinich, would you take us through that, please?
Yeah, so every year our engineering services department holds bids for all the concrete supplies, the various mixtures of concrete, sealant, things like that. Bids were received from Westview Concrete and Terminal Ready Mix. Those were open February 16th. After reviewing the bids, they have a motion here, a recommended motion to award those.
Okay, Mr. Urinich, what is the increase percentage-wise in concrete this year?
It did vary across each of the ones. I'm not sure of the exact percentage because each one there's a total of I think 7 mixtures.
Well, it's a sizable amount, I'm going to guess, because it's very energy intensive to produce concrete. And this is the kind of thing that if you think, why are eggs higher or things like that, concrete is one of those things. I can remember in my younger days when I would do the work myself, it was like $60 a yard for retail. That was almost 3 times that.
I will tell you that from our bid from 2 years ago, we had a bid price of $125 a yard for the 4,000 psi air and trained, the standard, your standard
Right,
concrete.
Right.
So we've gone up about 20%.
Yeah.
But that price, I can tell you that even the work we did last year on around the additional storage building in the back of this property, the concrete finishers that did the finish work for us, they were envious of our price. So even with this, I've heard some other retail numbers of around 165, and we're at 145 a yard. So it is advantageous for us to continue to do this bid. Included in our budgets this year was our resurfacing, continuing the next phases, and that is the back parking lot now that the additional storage building is complete. So we will utilize this for that project.
And these are local companies. I recognize the names.
Yes.
So, Mr. Rush.
Item 1E, was that crossed out before the bidding process or?
Yes, it was.
Okay, thank you. And we won't have a need for that type of product?
No, we won't.
Okay, so we have a recommended motion. Would anyone like to make it?
I will.
Thank you, Mrs. Schnabel.
I move to authorize the CUE to execute contracts with Westview Concrete and Terminal Ready Mix Incorporated for the supply and delivery of concrete per the engineer's certified bid tabulation as presented.
Thank you, Mrs. Schnabel.
Second.
Second by Mr. Ricky. Further discussion?
Yeah, I'd just like to say
Go ahead,
that,
Mr.
oh, I'm
Ricky.
sorry,
No, go ahead.
that these are really close by both companies, so I really think that we're getting some good prices here. There's nothing, I mean, for $2 a yard, you can go to either place. I mean, that's really good that they're close, that everybody's really, this is a good price for concrete for us.
Right. Mr. Rush.
I also appreciate the fact that we're using both vendors to get the best price rather than have to award it all to one company.
Yes, and there's a couple of reasons for that. The primary reason is for, like you said, there are instances where we do need a different mixture. So we want to make sure we're paying the lowest price. But we ran into it last year with one of the companies where they were already committed to large pours at the Ford production facility, the assembly plant, and they could not provide us the concrete. So we did have to go to the other, and we have language in our bid specifications to that effect to cover us. So.
All right, once again, we are grateful for Mr. Gadar's very clear bid tabulation, commend him on that. So we've moved and seconded, had discussion. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
The motion passes. Okay, back to Mr. Urinich and project updates, Mr. Urinich.
All right, for the power plant updates. Demolition is continuing on the north side of Lake Road. They had stated the next, I guess, significant milestone is they're going to be having an implosion of one of the stacks. That's looking to be early May, middle of May. They're going to be in contact with us. We'll be talking just so, we're not surprised. Obviously, they'll have to make a lot of preparations for that, but we'll be aware of when they're getting ready to do that.
Give everybody hard hats.
Yeah, I think from a distance, though, we'll view that one. I did speak with them a couple meetings ago. There were some inquiries about additional asbestos in any of the areas that they're getting to. Sat down and had a conversation with him just about what they've been doing. Anytime a new area comes up or a questionable area. So they had the third-party contractor that they'd utilize for the initial run through of the asbestos abatement when they had all the negative pressure areas, filtering the air, all the precautions that they were taking. They had a line item in their contract that should they come across any additional areas that were of questionable nature, they call that company back in. They do their testing. If they find anything, they go through the process again. They would set up a containment area. One of the things specifically he had mentioned as far as the double walled boilers and anything that was possibly touching the asbestos. So when they expose that area, they go through the whole process again of sampling, wash down, all of the wash water is contained and treated. And then they have additional air monitoring that takes place anytime they're in an area where they may have any concerns. So that's just kind of been their standard procedure for any area throughout the plant when they would possibly come across anything that would need additional remediation.
Now, if they come to that type of thing where they discover asbestos, that goes off the, main activity while that asbestos abatement goes on, they move then with the demolition crew somewhere else where they don't have that and keep
Correct.
things going.
That's-
So we're not really delaying the project, just reordering it.
Correct. He had mentioned that they had approximately 9 surprise visits by the EPA. They've been satisfied every time. They have not come across anything that they would recommend. But so far to date, I think he said about 2,700 pounds of asbestos or asbestos contaminated material have been disposed of following that protocol.
Mr. Rush, you had a question?
I didn't see it on the sheet. I was just going to ask about the environmental study that's being done on the south side, the whole pile area.
I'll report on that in my CUE report.
All right, thanks.
Okay, go on, Mr. Yurevich.
All right, for the ETL design services. The final version of the redesign. So we had discussed previously how the original routing of the suction line going underneath the railroad tracks that were owned by Norfolk Southern had kind of reached a stalemate as far as negotiations on that easement were concerned. So the final redesign for that 42-inch line is underway by our engineering department. Once that's completed, there's going to be a couple of additional easements through properties that will have to be negotiated. And currently the CUE is working on revisions to the cooperative agreement with the users of the ETLs. For the water filtration plant improvements, as discussed with the approval of the funding, the contract with Great Lakes Construction has been executed, and we're just waiting for a return of the contract with Lycoming Supply. They were the ones that were awarded the demolition portion of that project. Notice to proceed will be issued at the pre-construction meeting to be held on April 3rd.
Any questions from the board on those items? Go on.
For the additional storage building, there was a punch list of 5 items for North Bay construction. Those were all very minor. A couple of those were completed today. They'll be finishing up very shortly with that. Securitech was on site as well, finishing up integration of the access for the wash bay. I did not get a chance to talk to them before they had left. I'm not sure if did they provide any updates to you?
They did not provide any update to me, but
Okay.
they were supposed to do their final hookups and connections and testings today.
Yeah. So hopefully at the next meeting, we'll be able to close that one out.
We haven't washed vehicles yet with it.
We have the car wash has been operational, or I should say the commercial wash has been operational for about a month. But it was in a manual mode. It was working off of traffic loop type system. Securitech's portion is they installed a two-tiered pedestal. So depending on what type of vehicle, if it's a standard passenger vehicle like a pickup truck or an Explorer, there's a lower reader, and that utilizes our access control cards so that we have tracking of it, but also securing it. There's a higher up on the pedestal if you're driving one of our bigger vehicles, one of our heavy-duty trucks, you have a reader up there as well. So that was what Securitech was going to be finishing up with. But the system is operational. It's staff is very pleased with it, the ease of use, and how nice it does clean the vehicles, being a touchless system.
Do you think we could get a video of that to display at the next meeting?
Yes,
Okay. good.
Does it take green paint off?
not enough of it.
Well, it's a board value that, that's advertising for us. And if our vehicles look clean,
Yeah, no, I
that's
know.
good for clean water and so on. Okay, sorry for interrupting that. Your flow, do you want to tell us more about the inductively coupled plasma mass spectrometer, Mr. Urine? It's just one of your favorite ones.
Absolutely. I mean, it's fun to say. So this week, the lab has started doing the sampling of the wastewater and the industrial samples without running it in parallel with a third party. They had completed numerous tests. They'd gotten it to the point where their results were matching up almost identically with the other laboratory. In any test, there's going to be a small amount of variable each time you run the test, but they were well within what they were trying to reach. Next step will be completing their initial display of competencies, which is going through running results that they submit on a form to the EPA. Once they show that they've been able to consistently produce numbers matching up with knowns, and they will be able to schedule their certification test with the Ohio EPA for the drinking water side of things. They're hoping by the beginning of April, they'll have all of those IDOCs completed, get that testing scheduled. As I mentioned before, there's a lot less variable with the drinking water side of samples. So they don't see anything taking nearly as long. And as long as there's no surprises, they'll be getting their certification to go back to running all of our metals and those tests in-house.
Okay, good.
Excuse me,
Mr. Ricky.
that ICP should last us how long?
Typically 10 to 15 years is what they expect out of that kind of equipment.
Boy, it took us almost 6 or 7 months to get it approved, didn't it?
As far as the testing.
Testing and stuff. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
and
a
some of
long
it
time.
was because it's a newer method that, all the work that had gone into developing each of the procedures for the previous piece of equipment
Start over.
had to kind of start all over.
Okay.
So,
Well, let's hope we get 15 good years out of it.
and unless there was a change in technology, if they were just going to a newer ICP unit, you would still have to do, I think, a recertification, but it wouldn't be nearly as involved
Okay.
because you wouldn't have the same
Okay,
method.
but we've changed the technology of the testing a little bit here.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's why it took a little bit more, and
This budget item should come back in line now, I would think, since we're not doing the
Right.
outsourcing of testing, correct?
Right.
okay, sounds
I
good,
think
thank
we
you.
talked about that a couple meetings
Yeah.
ago.
Okay,
But I think the importance of it is that now we're certified like an outside lab would be.
Yeah.
And then we don't have to go to an outside lab for this.
do we do any testing for anybody else? Out of curiosity?
Yes. So especially on the lead and coppers, that
Okay.
is something that this piece of equipment will be used for. And typically all of our bulk customers will bring those to
Bring them
us.
to you for lead and copper tests?
So
Okay,
typically lead and copper season starts in the warmer months of the year. That's when it's usually required by the EPA to sample for. So that's
Okay.
our goal, is to make sure that by the time the second and third quarters get around.
it's our water, but it's our bulk customers' distribution system, and they're responsible for having the test done.
Correct.
And we're certified to do the test for them.
We will be.
Very good, thank you.
All right, anyone else on that item? You want to go on to SCADA, Mr. Urinek?
So the SCADA communication upgrade, we have started. We did get the fiber optic converters. We have ordered those. Those are the upgraded versions of the parts that had the failure that caused the issue a few weeks ago. We've been going through with both TMS and SOS, our integrators and computer system specialists. Additional upgrades that we could undertake that would increase the reliability and kind of, I guess, offer an improvement to the reliability. So we're still working on those. We've got a few ideas of where we're going, but once we get kind of the future plan finalized, we will obviously make a presentation about that.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Urinich. Mr. Monroe, want to tell us about the CUE report?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I do have a few items to report on. Related to the water filtration plant project. We do have a few items related to that. First item is relating to Lycoming Supply and their demolition bid. As Mr. Urinich had reported, we were awaiting return of that contract. We did receive the contract, or we did receive communication back from the owner of Lycoming Supply, and they informed us that they did not include any disposal of hazardous materials in their bid, and that and they can't provide us a price for what that would cost. And we know that we do have some asbestos that does need to be remediated and taken care of. So I spoke with the law director today regarding this, and we are going to have to rebid the demolition. This does not create any timing issues on the rest of the project because this contract would not start for approximately a year to a year and a half.
Oh, really? Okay.
Because of the decommissioning of existing processes. What we are going to, when we rebid this, what we will include, we have the majority of the buildings that are going to be required to be demolished. We do already have the asbestos report that was performed by HDR. There is another structure that we were going to demolish that was not included in that. So we will have to update our report, and then we will put it out to bid again. And when we put that out to bid, we will also include the Division Road water tower as part of the scope of the demolition services. And we can take advantage of them mobilizing to the site. So while it's unfortunate, it doesn't impact the improvement project. So engineering services is already working on that. We have reached out to a company that they do numerous things, one of them being asbestos inspections and reports, but also they do special inspections, which we're required to hire a third party for special inspections on the construction project. And we manage that part of it to save us money, so that the consultant HDR is not marking anything up, and we're not paying them to oversee a third party. So that's one item.
Before you go on from
Yes.
that, does it make any sense to give a bid to whoever's doing the work that Mr. Urinich so diligently reports on every meeting? If we're doing asbestos remediation at the power plant, would they be a potential bidder, whoever's doing that work?
Yes.
Might make sense, 2 blocks
Yes.
away, 3 blocks away.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and then my question, just how does this affect financing?
We've been approved by OWDA. It's included. So what we would do is we would just we're going to non-perform any of the loan associated with that. While we're approved for that 32 million and change, what's dispersed is what we actually pay on. When it comes time to make debt service payments.
Okay.
So, I would.
That's why I'm
obviously-
asking about the Division Tower.
Yeah,
being
this,
part of this
no,
project now.
this would not be,
Okay.
this would just, this would be a separate, and because of the cost of the demolition, you know, on the project, that may be something that we won't have to finance.
Okay, I just, like I say, we're mixing things up and we got this alone all set up and I just want to make sure it doesn't do anything to slow that down.
Yeah,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
Okay, anyone else?
So also related to the water filtration plant project, if you recall, when we put the project out to bid, we had several alternate bid items that we were on top of the base bid. We did not receive bids on any of those alternate items. There were a couple of them that are higher priority than others. One of them is sealing and recoating the tops of our basins, which it was something that we put out to bid 2 years ago, I believe. And the prices came in way above engineers' estimates, so we did not award. So we, at that point, we said, we'll include it as, you know, into the project. We included it as an alternate bid. We had asked why they did not bid, and they've, in their past experience, they have bid on all the alternate items and the base bid, and a very large project similar to ours, they were awarded a $50,000 surveying alternate bid, and they didn't get any of the other work. So as an organization, they chose not to bid on any of the alternates. Because two of those items are rather important, sealing of the basins, and also an interconnection to our wash water, our backwash system. We asked Great Lakes Construction to provide us with a proposal on those. Technically, they would be change order proposals. They have provided that. We did meet with them today to discuss them, and I can tell you that they're while we have a few things to fine tune, their change order proposals came in under what Mr. Gadar's engineer's estimate were. So I think they're, from a pricing standpoint, they're appropriate. They can be paid for under the contingency of the project, but there will be, this is more just an information item to the board. And when we move forward with that, we will bring that information to you. And another item, and this relates to Mr. Urinich's report on the SCADA system, is part of our ongoing quality commitment and our commitment to cybersecurity is we have identified a couple of issues with our server room at the water filtration plant, where it's located, and close proximity to the filters, and residual chlorine from the water, causing some corrosion. No specific immediate issues, but we are looking into having a dedicated server room that is sealed with HVAC, independent of everything else.
Pressure.
Yes. So that's just another information item for the board. Next item I have to report on relating to our property purchase. On March 11th at the city council meeting was the third reading. It was approved unanimously, 7-0. And so our 90-day due diligence period began upon full execution of the agreement, which took place on March 13th. So we have 90 days from March 13th. Because we received early access to the property to begin our due diligence, we've already had our environmental consultant from Verdantis there with their subcontractor and a drilling rig doing the soil sampling and the borings. That we expect that probably maybe this week, next week, we should start getting that data back. This is all part of that. I would comment that Councilman Shamir had reached out for some requested some additional information. I had provided that to him and all of council on Friday of last week. And Mr. Urinich and myself met with Councilman Shamir yesterday afternoon, discussed some of his concerns. And, you know, at this point, From our standpoint and our consultant standpoint, we are either ALERG or us are doing everything that we feel is appropriate. We received a phone call today from Ohio EPA, and Councilman Shamir had reached out to Ohio EPA, and they were looking for some more information. And in our discussion with Ohio EPA, they are comfortable with the work that has been done to date at the site, the information that has been provided to them by the current owner, and they know our history with Ohio EPA, and they are confident that we are going to do the right thing, whether we're buying the property or not. So again, it was a good discussion we had with Ohio EPA, and it is proceeding. So as we start to get our data back and our preliminary risk assessment is performed by Verdantis with the data that's collected, we will have that to discuss with the board on what our recommendation is to move forward.
Sure. Go ahead, Mr. Ricky.
Well, we're still on schedule then for the June 30th to have things kind of.
Yes, as of
Okay.
right now, we are still on
Everything is
schedule.
still plugging along. Very good. Thank you.
And thank you to council for expediting that. It was part of the process to keep it going. I did want to ask you, Mr. Monroe, Ohio EPA, Mr. Urinich in his report mentioned that they made 9 surprise visits. Does this overlap with that matter, that they feel like everything's being done in the way it should be?
The folks that we talked with today, Gomes, who is someone that we deal with, they're from surface water. So I think the inspections Mr. Urinich was referencing related to the asbestos abatement. So it would have been different division. But Mr. Gomes, again, we've dealt with him on our NIPIDs permit. He has inspected our facilities numerous times over the years. And again, is very familiar with how we operate and how we take care of our own facilities. So his involvement was specifically the retention pond that is now tied into the storm system. And again, from Ohio EPA standpoint, they do not have any issue with the information that has been provided to them and the work that has been done.
Will there be some final answer and or sign off by Ohio EPA in that matter?
As far as the stormwater, because the remediation work, the phase 1, the phase 2 that ALERG has performed, the stormwater on that site is classified as a class 2 stormwater. 2. And they do not consider it a industrial or construction discharge. So they do not issue a direct permit for that. It's deferred to the local. And if you recall, the city handling stormwater, the city's engineer, Mr. Howard, had a conflict of interest because Bramhall Engineering had done the stormwater report for that site. They were hired by ALERG, and they also did the design for tying it in. So former Mayor Zilka had asked if Jack Gadar, PE, would act on behalf of the city to review the plans. And he did. He agreed to that. And he had approved those and also oversaw the connection to make sure that it followed the specifications of the plans. And that is the process that the city typically goes through on a stormwater connection like that. It's a review process of the plans. So again, Ohio EPA stated they are comfortable and they have no concerns, no issues at this time.
Okay. All right. Anything else?
The last item I have is that we did meet last week last week, I guess it was, with Jim Ziminick, who is the director of the Lorain County Metro Parks, with our upcoming pending property acquisition and the Lorain County Metro Parks interest in providing a multi-purpose trail on some of the property. We did have a kind of an update meeting with him. He's very excited about the potential new multi-purpose trail, and we are looking forward to working with him and Metro Parks on that. And that is all I have.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Monroe. You've been very busy. Anything from the rest of the board in terms of member reports and miscellaneous?
I have one, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Abram.
Regarding local update with Oracle, Eaton Crossing Development, which is located in Route 82 behind the IGA store. Phase 1 is finally completed and they sold the last unit to the homeowners. Phase 2 is coming now under construction, and that's about 25 homes. They should be completed later this year. And they are, Ryan Holmes is the developer there, and phase 3 is the design work, which is now being undertaken by Ryan Holmes.
How many properties in that one?
That one is approximately another 50 or so. The total development for Eaton Crossing is about 225 homes. So maybe this year they have them done, but progress is occurring.
Mhm.
It's slow, that's all.
Do you know the total taps now, based on those 200?
If you add those 200 in, it would put it roughly around 1,600
Yeah.
total. They're prior to those, they're a little over 1,400.
Mhm. So we should be getting close to the pink there.
Closer.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
All right, thank you, Mr. Abram. Anyone else with member reports? I did attend the meetings with Mr. Monroe and the various parties in regard to the property acquisition, and everybody seems very energetic about the whole project. So I think it'll be a good thing. Mr. Urinich, do we have any public input from the various media?
There are no public comments.
Is the viewership, still growing? Fastest growing viewership?
It's more of a slow and steady wins the race, and we've maintained 8 viewers for the
Well, it's
majority of
up,
the meeting.
that's up from 4,
It's almost a 10% increase.
Yeah. Rob's mom, my wife.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Greg's wife.
Okay.
Not watching.
His wife.
His
Let's
wife is
see.
not watching.
Nor is my
Vote
husband.
her on.
Yeah, they,
watch.
that's what you
Yes,
probably.
about to get that. Madam Councilwoman, any input from you at this time? Okay, thank you. We do have a request for executive session, and if someone makes the motion, we will discuss that and vote on it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to meet an executive session as allowed by Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22, G2 and G3 to discuss the purchase and/or sale of property for public purposes and pending or imminent court actions, and to include the CUE, the CUO, the Business and Financial Coordinator, and a representative from Manzer Gavin.
Thank you, Mr. Rush. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Abram. Any discussion? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Ricky?
Yes.
Mrs. Schnabel?
Yes.
Mr. Abram?
Aye.
Mr. Rush?
Yes.
Chairman votes yes. We will go into executive session once the room is cleared. Thank you, council ladies, for your attendance and support on these items.
Thank you.